If an avoidance stays on your mind every single day, there is often a deeper reason behind it. It does not always mean you are unable to let go, too emotionally attached, or lacking strength. When someone keeps appearing in your thoughts, when old memories suddenly return, or when their name almost comes out during a conversation without you even planning it, it can be a sign that something between you still feels unfinished. It can mean there are emotions that never received a proper ending. And when someone remains this present in your mind, there is a possibility that you also cross their thoughts from time to time. Avoidant people are not emotionless. They are not incapable of caring. Their emotional world simply operates in a different way. Instead of facing intense feelings immediately, they often push them down and try to move forward as if nothing happened. But emotions that are buried do not simply vanish. They wait quietly beneath the surface until life becomes calm enough for them to appear again. When the noise disappears, when distractions are gone, and when they are finally alone with their own thoughts, the feelings they avoided can start returning. This is why it is possible that while you are remembering them throughout your day, they may also have unexpected moments where memories of you come back. They may remember small details they thought they had forgotten. They may think about conversations, moments of comfort, or the way you made them feel understood. The truth is, one of the biggest struggles inside an avoidant person is the difficulty of handling emotions they never learn to process fully. Avoidant individuals often experience closeness in a complicated way. The more meaningful a connection becomes, the more intense their inner conflict can feel. Instead of naturally moving closer, their instinct may tell them to create distance. It is not always because they do not care. Sometimes it is because caring deeply creates feelings they do not know how to manage. And this is the part many people misunderstand. When someone pulls away, it does not automatically mean the connection meant nothing. Sometimes the connection was powerful enough to activate their fears. If the two of you shared real emotional closeness, that bond did not disappear the moment they stepped back. The feelings may simply have been pushed into a place where they do not have to face them. While you are thinking about them every day, they may be having their own quiet reminders of you during ordinary moments. It might happen while they are driving alone, finishing work, walking through a familiar place, or lying awake at night before sleep arrives. A song, a location, a simple phrase, or a random memory can suddenly bring you back into their mind. They may remember how you listened to them, how you accepted them, or how safe they felt around you without having to constantly explain themselves. Then, almost immediately, their protective side may appear. They might try to push those thoughts away. They may become busy, find distractions, or convince themselves that keeping distance was the correct decision. But avoiding a feeling is not the same as healing from it. Ignoring emotions does not erase them, it only hides them temporarily. Feelings that are never processed often return when something reminds them of what they lost. They may never admit it openly. They may never send a message. They may never reveal the internal battle happening inside them. But that does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the strongest emotions are the ones people struggle the most to express. And here is something important to understand. Your silence can become more powerful than your words ever were. Once you stop reaching out, stop checking on them, and stop trying to keep the connection alive by yourself, the entire dynamic begins to change. At first, they might feel comfortable because the pressure is gone. They may believe the distance gives them peace and control. But as time passes, something different can begin to appear. Curiosity, uncertainty, a feeling that something has changed. They may start noticing the absence of your messages, your energy, your attention, and the small things you brought into their life. The silence that once felt peaceful can slowly become noticeable. Your absence creates a space they can no longer easily ignore. They may begin asking themselves questions they avoided before. Did you finally move forward? Did you stop caring? Did they lose someone who truly understood them? Did their decision to create distance finally push you away for good? These thoughts can become uncomfortable because silence removes the distractions that helped them avoid deeper emotions. When you were always available, they did not have to fully face the possibility of losing you. But when your presence disappears, reality becomes clearer. Your silence becomes a mirror showing them the impact of their choices. And sometimes the quietest moments reveal the things people were trying hardest not to feel. They may also begin realizing that the connection they had with you was not as easy to replace as they once believed. The way you understood them, the patience you showed, and the emotional safety you created may stand out more with time. Many people only recognize the value of something when they no longer have constant access to it. This does not mean every avoidant person will return or suddenly change overnight, but it does mean that distance can create reflection. Sometimes the absence of someone reveals the importance of their presence. And if you have been wondering why this person remains on your mind so often, the answer may be connected to the emotional impact the relationship had on you. Some connections leave a deeper mark because they touched parts of you that ordinary relationships never reached. The question is not only why you still think about them, the deeper question is what that connection awakened inside you and what you are learning about yourself through it. Someone who accepts an avoidant person without constantly trying to repair, control, or change them can leave a powerful and unforgettable impression. If you respected their need for personal space, valued their independence, and responded to their emotional distance with understanding instead of pressure, that kind of connection is not something they easily experience again. As they move forward and meet new people, comparisons can naturally begin to happen. New conversations may feel exciting and new connections may seem interesting, but something can feel different. They may notice that others do not understand their silence the way you once did. Others may not recognize the meaning behind their distance or create the same sense of emotional comfort you provided. Slowly, they may begin to understand that what they shared with you was not as common as they once believed. Realization does not always arrive through dramatic events. Sometimes it appears in the smallest moments, a familiar song, a quiet evening, a memory that suddenly returns, a feeling they cannot explain. Regret often grows silently, piece by piece, even when fear and pride prevent them from showing it. They may continue acting as if everything is normal while carrying emotions that nobody else can see. Avoidant people often become very skilled at appearing unaffected. They continue their daily routines, complete their responsibilities, laugh with others, and present an image of being completely fine. But what people see on the outside does not always reflect what is happening internally. Instead of openly expressing sadness or admitting they miss someone, they often push those feelings away. They may tell themselves that missing someone means losing control or becoming too dependent. But emotions that are pushed down do not disappear forever. They eventually find a way to surface, sometimes through sudden nostalgia, sometimes through frustration, loneliness, difficulty sleeping, or moments of unexplained emptiness. They might quietly revisit old conversations, look at memories they never deleted, or check your profile while pretending they are not interested. They may hope you make the first move because reaching out themselves feels like a risk they are not ready to take. Beneath the emotional walls and the appearance of independence is still a person who experienced something meaningful. And one of the hardest battles they face is the battle happening within themselves. That internal struggle is often connected to their protective side. For an avoidant person, this protection is not simply about being stubborn or proud. It is a defense system that developed over time. It tells them to stay guarded, avoid rejection, hide their softer emotions, and never reveal too much because vulnerability feels dangerous. Every day, they may feel caught between two different voices. One voice remembers the connection, the comfort, and the emotions they shared with you. The other voice tells them to stay distant, stay safe, and avoid anything that could make them feel exposed. This is why, even when their feelings are genuine, expressing them can feel incredibly difficult. The thought of reaching out may cross their mind more often than you realize. They might open your conversation, stare at the empty message box, and consider sending something simple. Maybe a message like, "Hey, how have you been?" Or, "I was thinking about you today." But then the fear appears. They imagine possible outcomes. What if you do not respond? What if you have already moved on? What if you respond but things feel different? What if they open a door they are not emotionally prepared to walk through? Those questions can become stronger than their desire to reconnect. Their protective side convinces them that silence is safer than risking rejection. Yet another part of them quietly wonders what could happen if they finally reached out. Living between those two feelings can become exhausting. As more time passes without communication, the silence starts becoming heavier. It is no longer only about pride, it becomes the fear that they may have lost someone who truly mattered. This is something many people do not see. The person who appears the most distant can sometimes be fighting the strongest internal conflict. Another thing that can happen is emotional withdrawal, and it can affect them more deeply than they expected. Even if they seem detached during the relationship, your presence may have become part of their emotional routine. Your kindness, your patience, your consistency, and the warmth you brought into their life may have created a sense of stability they did not fully recognize at the time. Avoidant people may struggle to admit attachment, but attachment can still form. Feelings can still grow. A connection can still become important. When that connection disappears, their mind and emotions often notice the change. At first, they may convince themselves that more freedom and more space are exactly what they needed. They may believe they are happier without the emotional responsibility of a close relationship. But slowly, something begins to feel different. Certain moments start reminding them of you, the time of day when you used to talk, a place connected to a shared memory, a song that brings back a feeling they thought they had moved beyond. Emotional withdrawal does not always look like obvious sadness. Sometimes it looks like restlessness. It looks like checking the phone without knowing why. It looks like feeling that something is missing but refusing to name what it is. They may try to fill that empty space with more work, new experiences, or new people. They may stay constantly busy to avoid sitting with their thoughts, but meaningful emotional connections are not easily replaced. When someone made them feel understood, accepted, and emotionally safe, that impact can remain long after the person is gone. And eventually, the quiet emptiness may force them to acknowledge what they tried to ignore. They may also begin spending more time reflecting on themselves than they would ever openly admit. Avoidant patterns often involve avoiding emotional exposure, but that does not mean they cannot think deeply about what happened. With enough time and distance, they may start looking back at moments they once dismissed. They may question whether they created distance too quickly. They may wonder if your needs were actually too much or if they simply struggled with emotional closeness. They may ask themselves whether they confused intimacy with pressure or whether they misunderstood someone who was genuinely trying to connect with them. These thoughts usually appear during quiet moments when there is no one around to distract them. They replay conversations where you tried to explain your feelings. They remember the patience you showed, the effort you made, and the moments when you tried to understand them, even when they were difficult to reach. Slowly, they may begin noticing patterns in their own actions. They may recognize the ways they protected themselves while unintentionally hurting someone else. This realization can feel uncomfortable because seeing your own patterns means accepting responsibility for them. But that uncomfortable awareness is often where personal growth begins. So if you have ever wondered whether they think about what happened, whether they remember the connection, or whether they ever reflect on the way things ended, there is a strong possibility that they do. The difference is that they often process those emotions privately, silently, and in ways that the outside world may never notice. Sometimes the loudest emotions are hidden behind the quietest behavior. Even if they never come forward with an apology, their awareness can slowly become stronger than their instinct to avoid difficult emotions. Deep inside, they may begin understanding things they once refused to acknowledge. They are also paying more attention to you from a distance than you might imagine. Silence does not always mean someone has stopped caring or stopped noticing. They may quietly observe changes in your life. They may look at your social media, notice differences in your pictures, your confidence, your attitude, or the way you carry yourself. They may wonder if you are happier now, if someone else has entered your world, or if you finally discovered peace without them. Every small observation can create emotions they rarely express openly. Jealousy may not appear in obvious or dramatic ways. Instead, it can show up as a quiet discomfort when they imagine someone else receiving the love, patience, and understanding they once experienced from you. They begin wondering if you are slowly forgetting them or becoming stronger without their presence. And one of the biggest realizations that can affect them is the possibility that you no longer need them. Avoidance often feels comfortable when they believe someone will always be waiting, always available, and always willing to reconnect. But once they sense that you are truly moving forward, something changes. They begin feeling replaceable. That feeling can be deeply uncomfortable because underneath their walls and defenses, they never truly wanted to lose the connection. They simply did not always know how to protect it or maintain it in a healthy way. Another powerful shift happens when delayed emotions finally begin catching up with them. Many avoidant people initially experience a sense of relief after creating distance. Less emotional pressure can feel easier in the beginning. Fewer conversations, fewer expectations, more space. But emotions do not disappear just because someone steps away. They often return later, sometimes weeks or months afterward. Feelings they pushed aside begin rising unexpectedly. A familiar place, a certain smell, an old message, or even a random dream can suddenly bring memories of you back into their mind. Because those emotions were delayed instead of processed, they can return with surprising strength. That is often when they begin understanding the true value of what they had. They realize you were not just another person who passed through their life. You were someone who genuinely cared, someone who showed patience, someone who saw beyond their emotional defenses and still chose to understand them. That realization can affect them more deeply than any argument ever could. Eventually, they may begin carrying a quiet feeling that the connection is not completely gone, even if there has been no communication for a long time. Emotional bonds do not instantly disappear simply because conversations stop. When someone has made a meaningful impact on your life, that impression can remain. And if you still find yourself thinking about them every day, there is often a reason that connection continues to feel powerful. They may experience their own version of that lingering emotional imprint. They may not describe it in the same way, but they can still wonder how things could have been different. They imagine different outcomes where they communicated more openly, allowed themselves to be vulnerable, and did not run away when the connection became deeper. In those quiet moments, something slowly begins shifting inside them. They start realizing that love does not mean losing freedom. Vulnerability does not mean weakness. And emotional closeness does not always lead to pain. So if an avoidant person remains on your mind every day, it does not necessarily mean you were the only one who felt something real. The connection may have mattered to them too. While you may be carrying questions, memories, or feelings that never received answers, they may be dealing with their own private struggle involving fear, pride, curiosity, regret, and emotions they delayed facing. Avoidant people are not without feelings. Many times they are simply afraid of how powerful those feelings can become. Sometimes they do not understand the importance of a connection until distance creates a space where they can finally see it clearly. But the impact you had does not disappear just because they stayed silent. You may have changed something inside them. You may have introduced them to a type of emotional safety they were not used to experiencing. And that kind of influence is not easily forgotten. In fact, something even deeper may begin happening within them. They may start feeling the loss of emotional comfort, even though they were the person who created the distance. What they begin missing is not only the relationship itself, but the sense of stability that existed when you were part of their life. They may not have openly admitted needing you, but your presence may have quietly become a source of comfort. Your consistency, your understanding, and the way you respected their emotional space may have created a feeling of safety they did not fully recognize at the time. You allowed them room to breathe instead of making them feel controlled. You understood their need for quiet moments. You gave them patience when they struggled to express themselves. That kind of acceptance can become extremely meaningful for someone who has spent years protecting themselves emotionally. Now that you are no longer as available, they may begin feeling the difference. They may not call it loneliness. They may not admit they miss the security you brought. Instead, they may simply feel unsettled, a strange emptiness, a feeling that something important is no longer there. They may miss the calm energy you added to their life. They may miss the reassurance that came naturally when you were around. The difficult truth is that some avoidant people only recognize how safe they felt with someone after that safety has already disappeared. When a person truly understands them and chooses to remain patient, it creates a foundation of trust. And when that foundation is removed, even someone who appears emotionally strong can feel the change deeply. Another internal battle begins when they try convincing themselves that they do not need you. Independence can become a major part of their identity. It is not just a lifestyle choice, it is often a protective habit they developed to avoid feeling dependent or vulnerable. So when they begin missing you, their first reaction may be to fight against those emotions. They may become busier. They may focus more on work, hobbies, social activities, or anything that helps them prove they are completely fine on their own. They may repeat the idea that they are better this way and that they do not need anyone. But emotions cannot be erased through denial. Those feelings continue appearing in quiet moments, a heavy feeling before sleep, a sudden wave of loneliness in a crowded room, a memory of you interrupting their thoughts during an ordinary day. They may see your name and quickly move away. They may avoid certain songs because those songs bring back emotions they are trying not to feel. From the outside, they may appear completely detached, but internally, they may be fighting feelings that refuse to disappear. Over time, that internal struggle can become exhausting because deep down, they begin understanding that missing someone is not a weakness. It is simply a human emotion. Another feeling that may quietly grow inside them is fear. Not fear of you, but fear that you have changed. When you stop chasing, become calmer, and stop reacting the way you once did, they notice those changes more than they reveal. They recognize when your energy becomes different. They notice when you stop trying to convince them, stop explaining yourself repeatedly, and begin focusing more on your own peace. That shift can feel surprising because the old relationship pattern no longer exists. Before, they may have felt secure knowing your feelings were still there. They may have assumed you would always remain emotionally available. But when you become more independent, more balanced, and more focused on yourself, they may begin questioning their place in your life. They start imagining you healing. They picture you moving forward. They wonder if you have reached a point where the past no longer controls your emotions. Suddenly, the certainty they once had begins disappearing. They may start asking themselves difficult questions. Did they wait too long? Did their fear cause them to lose something valuable? Did their distance create a gap that cannot be repaired? And one of the hardest realities they may face is realizing they cannot simply return whenever they feel ready. Time changes people, healing changes people, growth changes people. As more time passes, they may also begin looking back at the relationship through a completely different perspective. They may no longer only remember the moments that felt overwhelming. They may start remembering the love, the patience, and the connection they once had, and that new understanding can become impossible to ignore.